Hello and welcome to the Courtenay Turner podcast. My guest today is a return. It is Cynthia Chung, and she did this fantastic article, A Republic If We Can Phoenix It, Brett Weinstein's Tavistock Cure to Save the Demented West by Burning the Village to Save the Village. And we're going to talk about that and other stuff today. There's been a lot of overlap between some of the research we've done, so this should be a really fun conversation. And she and her husband have Canadian Patriot and the Rising Tide Foundation, and we've had Matt on here many times before. And we're going to be doing actually a group discussion coming up soon, so stay tuned for that. And as always, if you want to support the podcast, I encourage you to click the links below and check out some of the affiliates that we have, as well as you can head on over to CourtenayTurner.com. Again, for those who are listening, I spell my name a little bit differently. It's like Courtenay. It is Courtney, but it is spelled Courtenay. That's CourtenayTurner.com. And we have all sorts of ways you can support the work I'm doing here. Some of the direct ways you can send me snail mail, old-fashioned, which is always a treat. And that is at Courtenay Turner, 6041 Rural Plains Circle, Suite 110, number 106, Franklin, Tennessee, 37064. And then we also have a Venmo option for direct support. And that's at Courtenay, again, spelled like Courtenay, but it's COURTENAY-Turner. And we have a buy me a coffee option. You'll see the orange circle with a little mug in the middle of it on my website. And we also have Give, Send, Go. And then we have some great affiliates like the rncstore.com. You use your promo code COURTZ, that's COURTZ. And you will get 10% off everything in the store. And this is where you can get all of your B17 needs. And this is a great way to boost your immune system. And there's also some really great literature on there. If you're looking at the picture right now, you'll see A World Without Cancer by the legendary G. Edward Griffin. And I had asked him, he's the OG red pill guy. What was the OG red pill guy's red pill moment? And he said it was really learning about all the lies surrounding cancer. And it was, so RNC is not the Republican National Committee. That is a Richardson Nutrition Center. And it was his father, John Richardson Jr.'s father, Dr. John Richardson, who taught G. Edward Griffin all about the wonders of B17, laetrils, amygdala, and the ties to cancer. And that led him to writing this book, which was supposed to be an article on A World Without Cancer. So there's all sorts of other great literature at that site as well. So I encourage you to check that out if it's something you're interested in. And there's also all the various supplements. I personally take the apricot seeds every single day. I know some people have commented that you can get cyanide poisoning. That is part of the whole, lie, the scare tactic. The amount of apricot seeds that you would have to eat daily is quite large. You're not going to get cyanide poisoning from having 3 apricot seeds a day. So, I'm not a doctor, of course, consult with your doctor, but this is just a natural way that you can get some B17 into your diet. So that is the rncstore.com and promo code COURTZ. And then we also have relaxsaunas.com. Cynthia and I were just talking about how chilly it's getting where she is. And the weather is definitely turning here as well, although not quite as cold. And this is where you can get your far infrared sauna. And if you want to learn all about the science behind that, I've done some episodes with Phil Williams, and we have talked about the science behind these far infrared saunas and lamps. And you can use your promo code COURTZ, COURTZ, to get $100 off of your sauna. And I personally love my sauna. I use it multiple times a day, especially in the winter. And I love that, yes, you can see how it's just a portable zip up thing. You can put your head under, but I personally love leaving my head out. So I can do it in the middle of the day and I don't have to redo my whole hair and makeup spiel, which I know you ladies feel me, that can take a while. So definitely interrupts the day if you have to do that, before going about your business. So promo code COURTZ will get you $100 off at relaxsaunas.com. And then we also have satellitephonestore.com. And this is, again, a promo code COURTZ will get you a free phone. And that is a huge, huge opportunity because these phones can be really expensive. You'll have to pay for the service, but it's kind of comparable to any other phone service. And it works like a regular phone. I've had so many people ask me, so do I have to have another satellite phone that I'm calling? And you absolutely don't. You can call another satellite phone, but this works calling another cell phone and a landline, any phone you can call with your satellite phone. But this means that you can use this in a place that does not have cell phone service. You can use it anywhere. And this is great in times of emergencies, or if you're just off the grid somewhere that doesn't have, or kind of in a rural area that doesn't have cell phone service, which is most of the world, actually. This is a great way to stay prepared with your communication so you can stay in touch with your loved ones, and especially in times of emergency. So we have other affiliates as well. Go check out the site or click the links below. And I also want to mention my Substack because I started that, I don't know, a month or so ago. And all the podcasts are up on there. And I have started writing some articles and I will be putting more out, although we are going to be taking a bit of a break. But then when I get back, I will be back to it and you can keep up with all that is going on there. So check out that. And let's bring on Cynthia Chung. How are you doing today? I'm
doing very good. Thank you for having me on. Wow, that was impressive. What? Impressive roster. I'm like, some of those things I'm interested in.
I'm like, how fast can I get this all out? Yeah, and I forgot to say that people should also like and subscribe and share because all that's free. But yeah. Yeah, I joke that I've become a professional beggar, but it can't go on otherwise. So yeah,
no, exactly.
So yeah, so this was really exciting. You put out so much content. I'm always so impressed with the sheer amount of content and how deep you go. And I know you just put out a book, and I can't wait to read that too. So we'll follow up on that. I'm thinking that's going to tie up so many loose ends for me personally, because I feel like that's kind of the Freemasons and the Jesuits, anthropologists, to the ghost dance religion. I feel like that's kind of like always lurking in the background. With all they have kind of their exoteric groups that they like to put into the forefront and pin the tail on the donkey. But that seems to be what comes up when you scratch beneath the surface a little deeper always. So
yeah, I thought that was just like a kind of side thing that I kind of did my own personal rabbit hole research just because I was interested, because it was in Anton Chaikin's Treason in America, and it ended up being like a lot more relevant than I realized, because I started hearing some people on podcasts talking about the ghost dance in a positive light. In one case, like it was even brought up by someone who had read my paper, because it was in a paper form at the time. Weren't the Mormons also involved in bringing about the ghost dance? And this person who was a guest was like, oh yeah, of course, and then moved on. So there's like a lot of like shady, I feel, bringing up of the ghost dance religion in a really relevant way. But anyway, that's for another time.
Yeah. Great. So how did this come about? This one, the Republic If We Can Phoenix. It was so strange. So I've been, I don't even know if I should say this publicly, but I was a little bit like wary when the whole Rescue the Republic team came together. There's some interesting characters that have some interesting ties, and I was kind of joking. It looks more like Grift the Republic than Rescue the Republic. And I'm not, it's not to say that, the people involved might not have had very good intentions. I don't think they all, are aware of what might be the underpinnings behind, some of these movements, but that is kind of how it felt. So, and then to hear Brett Weinstein with the end of his speech, and it wasn't like a throwaway comment either. I mean, it was a good 5 minutes where he explains like how we have to phoenix the Republic. So
yeah, I mean, I was actually I'm going to confess that I didn't listen to Brett Weinstein very much. Of course, I knew who he was, and I knew of the Dark Horse podcast, and I basically had watched the one where he had Malone on, because that one was like huge. When we were all trying to like piece together what the heck is going on. And, you know, I feel as you do about some of the Rescue the Republic people involved. Some I think are very consciously trying to do I think a sabotage and the very opposite of rescuing the Republic, and others are just not aware of what they've been invited on board to. But I started to listen to some interviews by from Brett. Like one was a Christian podcast that was actually super interesting. Where there was someone else also that was Alistair McGrath was on for this particular one. It's called The Big Conversation Christian Radio, and it was remarkable the kinds of things that Brett Weinstein was saying 5 years and even 6 years ago, that it actually is no surprise that he would say that we should phoenix the Republic. And, you know, like on this podcast, he was saying things like God is a hack, very much like Harari type terminology. And everything that he talks about in terms of the sacred or religion, in particular that I was focusing on when I was looking up interviews he had done, he talks about it very much in a sort of cybernetics game theory structure. And he really, not to offend people who are fans of Brett Weinstein, but like when I was listening to him, he really sounded like a robot the way he spoke, and that everything is a mechanism in us, that we're programmed. You know, Eric Weinstein is, I find, a little bit more eloquent when he's talking about these subjects of religion and sacred, but he, at the end of the day, also believes that we're programmed. And there's a clear continuation and yet distancing from the Richard Dawkins selfish gene, right? Yep. So Richard Dawkins did not have a lot of finesse when he was going into these debates with religious, figures, and they probably didn't do the best job either, at least the ones that I heard who were debating him. And I think that that's organized on purpose to not have the best, religious representatives debating someone like Richard Dawkins, but he would be very offensive. And at the end of the day, as Eric Weinstein said in a podcast about 7 months ago, like, he's an atheist, but he understands that religion is going to affect your life even as an atheist, because it's in the culture, for instance, right? It's in the literature, it's in the music he loves, it's in the literature he loves. You can't completely, cut that out of your life if you want to have that diversity, the culture, basically, right? Like all of Western culture has been affected by religion, arguably some of the best parts of our culture. So it was interesting that Eric Weinstein brought that up, that we can't help but be touched by it. And Brett is, I find, much more transparent and direct when he says that, religion has a purpose, but at the end of the day, so we're not going to take the Dawkins approach. We know that religion plays a role, but it's ultimately still an evolutionary role. So God is a hack in the sense that it's a good thing to put into your system to get people to behave the way that you want them to behave. And he even said, in this other thing he did for Big Think, it's just like a standalone 3-minute thing. He says, heaven isn't real, literally, but metaphorically it's real because it gets us, again, it gets people to behave in a certain way that we want them to behave, and thus it increases their genetic fitness. So there's a lot of weirdness, and he's said many times that we have to get the new system online. He says, that we couldn't possibly have the wisdom to keep up with like the technology and all of the change that's happening, which is a strange comment to make, of like, wisdom isn't about predicting what's going to happen. Wisdom is to know, what is the best course of action, in problem solving, and how to deal with these kinds of problems that are coming up. I find that it doesn't matter, whether you have the wisdom of Plato from like centuries ago. I think Plato would be very useful today, actually, if he were alive and like dealing with some of the ethical issues that we have. But you know, he says that we don't have any possibility of having the wisdom, and thus we need a new system online. And that's, you know, that's the whole game B that you've also talked about on your podcast, which is a total cybernetics. There seems to be also elements of transhumanism in this, but he never quite explains specifically what he's talking about whenever he's like, the new system needs to come online, or we need to have, you know, we need to enforce certain behavioral traits. He never says like exactly how it's supposed to be. And I found it also interesting, and then I'll stop ranting for
No, it's great.
The Rebel Wisdom channel,
Yep.
where he was interviewed with Jim Rutt on the Game B thing. It was funny reading the comments because some people were just totally into Brett Weinstein in particular, because he has a way of speaking that it sounds humble, and it sounds like he's deeply reflecting on things, whereas it's always about just nudging if you actually listen to what he's saying. And he's not actually taking into account the complexity or the diversity of human beings at all. And from what I've heard anyway. But it was funny to hear in the comment section that there were a number of people who said, because they never defined what the hell is game B. Oh, game B is anti-game A.
Right.
And what the heck? Okay. And we're going to have a central command for game B. We're going to have all our little, you know, nodes, but there's going to be a central command for game B. So go and do your work of bringing down game A. And that was basically the directive that they at least shared on this podcast. And people in the comment section were like, this smells of totalitarianism. And I think that, you know, they hit the nail on the head there.
I would agree. So I have actually met Brett Weinstein, and he is very, like, he's very sweet. He does have kind of a humble kind of carriage, but I think it's more of a, I don't know. I don't want to be super derogatory, but it does feel